Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons and getting other players to accept your suboptimal build. All right, let's talk about this. All right, I am a epic level dungeon master. I love being a dungeon master. I've been working on it for I started when I was 12, and I'm 49 now. I've been dungeon mastering for 37 years. I'm pretty darn good at it. I've listened to some of the best people in the world. I've learned a lot from Adam Cobell. I've learned a lot from Luke Crane. I've learned a lot from the Gary Gygax. I've learned a lot from Todd Krennic. I have learned a lot from Matt Colville. The list goes on and on and on and on and on and on and on. I've learned a lot from Satine Phoenix. Who else is in there? I've learned a good bit from Fred Hicks. Fred Hicks is a good bit to say on good dungeon mastering. I've learned a lot from Sly Flourish. He's really fantastic. There is just a huge amount of fantastic dungeon masters, and I have paid very close attention to them, and I've incorporated their words of wisdom, and I'm a good dungeon master. I am a horrible player. I try to dungeon master from the player's chair. Do it all the time. 2, I do a lot of Leroy Jenkins, and in weird, unexpected, strange ways. 3, if the dungeon master is not a great dungeon master, I can get real itchy at the table. I'm just a terrible player. I end up at the table, right? I tell people I'm not a good player. You don't want to invite me into your game. Now, I'm cursed with a lot of charisma and a beautiful wife who speaks well of me. and I get a lot of invitations to different games. And, I'm really incredibly blessed, and I get a lot of invitations to games. And I end up in the player seat a lot, right? And this happens to me a lot. Like, I'll play in 3-4 sessions, and then, like, the legs get kicked out from the table, and it's not a literal table flip, but it's a very virtual table flip. And suddenly, Scott Garibay, the terrible player that Scott warned you was going to show up, shows up, right? And everybody's like, "What the heck? What?" And I do some really weird thing that really kicks the campaign sideways, and it gets weird, and it happens routinely. Okay, it happens like every 3 to 6 months in my life, and people are like, "Oh my gosh, remember when Scott Garibay sent that campaign spinning in a weird direction?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah." So it's a real issue, right? So I'm just an absolute terrible player. And one part of my play style is suboptimal builds. I absolutely never build an optimal build. I refuse to do it. I always have some weird narrative wonky aspect to my character, which makes them suboptimal in like 5 different ways. And invariably, it drives people crazy at the table, right? If you sit me down at a Dungeons and Dragons game, and they have a cleric, a wizard, and if they have a fighter, a wizard, and a rogue, everybody's gonna look at me, and I'm gonna be a cleric, and I'm gonna be like, "Oh, I'm playing a fighter," and I will not play that cleric. "Come on, dudes, we're gonna buy some healing potions." And we're like, "We don't have any money." "Yeah, well, one of us is gonna die. Let's go." I'm not a great player. I've been telling, I tell people, right? So, so I won't play that key aspect to player. In addition to that, right, I absolutely always have a very, very, very suboptimal build, and it either causes minor annoyance for one or more players, or sometimes it causes major problems for entire tables who all have optimal builds, right, and are very keyed into optimal build play. So it can be a serious, serious problem. So today, I'm going to give you tips for getting other players to accept your suboptimal build. So I'll give 1 minute to the obvious, right? You can tell people you can speak openly and communicate about it. I think this is a terrible idea, but every wonk in the world is like, oh, you should communicate, blah, 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 right? So I'm going to tell you this right now. This only works if you're a shiny person. If you are young, thin, and symmetrical, this sometimes will work, right? You can just say, listen, I am playing a suboptimal build. The reason I am playing a suboptimal build is because I really, really, really am dialed in on narrative. And I will sacrifice hit points, like my damage output, my speed, all kinds of game mechanics in order to have a cool narrative, right? And I know that's going to break your flow, but this is how I like to play. Let's keep rolling, right? Now, I'll tell you right now, I think you got about a 1% chance that's going to work. I do not believe what most people say, that open communication at the table solves all problems. That is the clarion song of every 2-bit Dungeons & Dragons pundit with a webcam, and I'm telling you, it does not solve half the problems they promise it will, right? Because the reason why is people are obstinate and broken generally, and in very weird and unique ways, and that's a thing, right? And so the reality is, open communication isn't the balm, B-A-L-M, that everyone says it is. So how else can you do it? Okay, so one, when you get to the table, put your suboptimal character down, and then you get ready for it to happen. Okay, because what's going to happen is somebody's going to say, "Hey, your character is not configured right. Let me help you build it right." Right, and then you got to be ready to put them back in their place. Right, and say, "Listen, this is my choice. This is my character. I built it this way on purpose. I understand where you're going. You're trying to be helpful, but making that change would not be helpful to me. I am very appreciative of your attempt, but I would like to keep my character configured the way it is." And they're going to say, "Well, the problem is you're not going to be able to do a lot of damage." And you're going to say, "Well, I have a plan. I have a plan for this character, and that plan will be revealed a few levels from now." Okay? And then that should give you some time. Okay? And then at that point, then when they come and say, "Oh, hey, we got to fix this," you say, remember the plan, right? And they're like, "Well, what are you planning?" I'm like, It's a secret plan I have for my character. I'm going to transition my character into a unique special state, right? Now, what is that unique special state? It's my unique special state, which is the future state of the character that will emerge through narrative, which is an undisclosed state, undisclosed to me and that other person. But it is a state which is unmarred by their interference. It is a true state. It is a real thing, and it is just the pristine, unmarred existence of my character in the way I want it. That is the plan. You're not going to say that to them, but that's what you're going to do, right? So that is the way you want to do it, is say, I have a plan. And that's going to give you time, right? Then at that point, what you want to do is you want to start to build up goodwill with the game master, okay? Now, when you are playing a suboptimal build, right, one of the things you can do to your players are absolutely going to be frustrated with you. Often, very often, your dungeon master will be frustrated with you. So what can you do to really get the game master on your side, okay? Well, what you do then is you become the game master's best friend virtually in the game. You watch for opportunities. You're like, hey, you take down notes, right? You say, I remember that NPC's name, and then you help the DM. Rather than go out and grab another yogurt from the fridge, you're like, hey, do you need help setting up minis, right? You bring, like on one of the games, you just bring an extra set of dice, like a brand new set of dice, and say, hey, I really appreciate your game mastering. I wanted to give you this extra set of dice for just as a thank you for all the time you're investing in this game. And you do one of these things in each session. In each session, you do something to make the Game Master's life easy, okay? And you're building that goodwill because in 3 or 4 more levels, that same Barkledark that tried to, switch your character on you is going to come back and say, hey, your plan never worked, it never manifested, let's change that character. And at that point, you could say, hey, Game Master, I think my character's working great, even in this suboptimal build. What do you think? And then the Game Master can back you up. That's the way you do it. That's the way you make a suboptimal build and you protect the suboptimal build from Barklenarks that are going to try to break it, right? Keep it, preserve it, long live the suboptimal build. All that is my opinion. I'd love to hear your opinion on it. What's your opinion on suboptimal builds? Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.